What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and today we're having a look at co-op quest INFINITUM C. So this is a relatively difficult event, of course, and it really is going to depend on the friend or your partner that is going to be joining you in this quest. Now, for this first mission, you have to build a team that is a full quick team, and every unit on your team has to be either a striker or a powerhouse type unit, or a class unit, should I say. Now, for the team that we have here, one unit that may kind of stand out, there's like, how does that unit even fit in, which is Ace and Sabo. The interesting thing is that while Ace is a quick unit, Sabo is actually a striker, and, you know, dual units basically take all type and class combinations of that one unit, and as long as, you know, it fulfills the role where, you know, one part of the unit is quick, one part is a striker, it does actually work for the mission. So you can take advantage of that to use characters that you wouldn't think otherwise. Ace and Sabo are kind of nice. They allow you to get around Special Bind. They get around Bind and Despair as well. So they just do a bunch of utility stuff. You know, the Orb Boost, unfortunately, is only for Shooter and Free Spirit. So that aspect doesn't really work all that well for the team. But it's the utility as to why they are mainly here. The way that I kind of build these teams these days for these co-op quest INFINITUM C missions is to kind of like have a friend that joins me that basically is like the heavy damage dealer, and then basically dedicate my team to try and be as utility focused as possible, whether that be through the actual effects itself or through support effects as well. Which is why most of the time when I build these types of teams, I like to use debuff style captains, where I can use the special ability to remove buffs on the enemy side of the field, and while potentially delaying them as well. So it grants a lot of beneficial effects here. You do see on this stage here with Blackbeard and Big Mom, we just take forever to get through this stage. Blackbeard, in my opinion, is the most annoying mini-boss in co-op quest, because he gives like really nasty debuffs and they last for 3 turns, which, if you guys know how normally when you get given a debuff, you know, with enemy preemptive attacks and stuff like that, that all actually will affect how long each of your buffs last for. But buffs last a lot longer in co-op quest, which actually makes things a lot more frustrating to build for. So, you know, the debuffs that Blackbeard gives you of chain attack down, and it's such a significant chain attack down as well. I had the support of Perispera, which said if we're inflicted with chain attack down, it actually will give us a 2.75 chain lock. But the chain attack down, for some reason, is like a 3.0 chain attack down, which is just ridiculous. And then he also gives you like the pain debuff as well, which can be really frustrating. Big Mom with the resilience just takes a little bit of extra time. Of course, if you have, you know, like a Momonosuke, like most people are probably using on like their INFINITUM C random, you know, rainbow team, that usually will get through this. But, you know, if you're trying to build for one of these certain missions, it can be very, very frustrating. This next one here with Gecko Moria as well as Eneru, I think we actually got through this one relatively okay. I think my friend on this one actually helped get through the Gecko, which was pretty frustrating. You know, Gecko usually is very, very annoying. I think, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure Gecko Moria inflicts the silence debuff on your captain, which is that effect where you cannot swipe up or down on your unit that is inflicted with that debuff, which can be very frustrating, especially if you're trying to use Gear 5 Luffy and you forget to use his EX Super beforehand, or you're not able to use the EX Super beforehand because of that debuff. That can be really, really frustrating. Or if you've got like a captain with a really specific EX Super or Super type, you know, or a really powerful special ability, it can cause problems there, and Moria can definitely be very, very, very frustrating to get through. And then Enel, he can inflict paralysis, he can inflict burn, but it's nothing too crazy. You see that my partner here actually goes crazy and actually ends up knocking out the Moria and gets Eneru down a little bit, which leaves us with a bit of time here to try and do as much damage as we can. We are inflicted with the burn debuff from Enel, which is not really that great, but we can kind of make do with that. You know, we just do a bit of damage. I think I try and get a knockout, but because I was being very cautious of the burn, I wasn't unable to do that. But realistically, this is probably for the best, because I know that my partner in this quest has like the more heavy damage dealing team, so it's actually better for them to knock out that opponent on stage 5, so when we move into the final boss stage, I get hit with all of the debuffs, which means that I can use whatever specials I need, pass it off to my friend, and basically they can go ahead and get the knockout. So that is like the best way to do it, in my opinion. At least that's what I found, because if you're just trying to build a team that not only gets around a bunch of debuffs, but also does a ton of damage, it's very, very difficult to do that, especially if you're randomly jumping in with a stranger into co-op quest. So I feel like the best thing to do is make sure you find someone or get someone that has a really powerful team, and then basically you run a support role alongside them. Luckily for us, we did get Nico Robin as our final boss, and despite her massive amounts of attack down and % damage reduction, that's basically all you have to deal with. So luckily Nico Robin is not too tricky. She's definitely one of the bosses that you would prefer to see in Co-op Quest INFINITUM C. But that's the end of this clip, and we'll pick things up with the next challenge in the next clip. So moving on to our next clip is going to be the Psi mission. So for this specific mission, you have to build a full Psi team, whilst every unit on the crew has to be either Cerebral or Free Spirit. There was another character I was using on this team instead. Initially, I was using Rayleigh and Gaban instead of the Legend Chopper on the team. To be honest, they're both pretty nice, but even though Rayleigh has that switch effect to get a very minor attack boost every single turn, which is pretty nice, and he also grants an all boost with that special and the special bind removal, all that good stuff. The thing about Chopper is that he just does more for the team, as despite the fact that we lose that switch effect of an additional 20% bonus damage every single turn. You know, Chopper providing the utility to get rid of bind, spare, attack down, and then a bunch of other miscellaneous debuffs. Like, Chopper is just kind of the better unit to use. Also, a thing about Chopper that's kind of better than Rayleigh Gaban is that he gets access to better supports compared to Rayleigh and Gaban. The only real problem by using Chopper is the fact that he doesn't have his cooldown all ready to go when we start the quest. My Odin co-op captain is slightly leveled up, so the special I think is like level 3 of 5, and I think the captain is completely maxed out, which is nice because it does give a lot of additional cooldown and it grants a much higher captain boost, and it definitely makes a big difference. You know, after using, you know, the base level captains in most of the co-op quests, when you use one of the captains that are actually leveled up, you do notice a very sizable damage increase, which is going to be big. I mean, you know, moving forward, you know, a lot of the time you don't have to have these captains leveled up, but certain missions I think moving forward are going to be really, really tricky to beat, and by leveling up that captain to get a slightly higher multiplier might be the way forward in some of the co-op quests in the future. Now, this certain stage against Kaido, things get a little dicey here. I wasn't 100% sure what the best plan of attack was for this team, so I end up just using the EX Super just to do a bit of damage through that barrier. I don't know exactly what my partner is actually doing in terms of getting around that barrier. I think he was actually able to do it, but he was able to kill. If not, then I think I killed on the next turn, but I'm pretty sure that my partner got through that. But Kaido can be a little bit frustrating depending on your team build that you have, because of that barrier that he does if you don't kill him on that initial turn, because it's a Wano barrier, and you know, not every team is capable of generating Wano slots, so it can be a little frustrating. So next stage we have Magellan and Katakuri. Katakuri is not a terrible boss. Like, he's definitely one that you would prefer to see, because his debuffs are a little bit negligible. Obviously it is team dependent, and because we have the leveled up captain with Odin, just with normal attacks here, we actually were able to knock out Katakuri. So that just shows you like the difference between these captains. Like, if I had a, you know, base level captain there, level 1 of 5, I definitely wouldn't have killed Katakuri on that stage. Magellan can be a little frustrating, so he like poisons us on the initial turn, and then when you move on to your partner for the next turn, I think he poisons again, which is kind of frustrating. But luckily for me, you know, my partner here did pretty good damage, and he actually did knock out the Magellan, which is even better, which means that I walk into the final boss stage hitting with those debuffs, and we see Brook as our boss this time. Now, Brook is another one of these bosses that is a little bit easier to take down, usually you're going to be having, you know, your specials that are dedicated to removing defensive effects, which is really what we have here, which is fantastic. The only thing that Brook does as well that's a little frustrating is that he gives some attack down as well, so there's a lot of debuffs to take care of. You know, there is a barrier that he has. I think he puts up a barrier literally every single turn. And another thing that is frustrating about Brook is that he does revive, so, you know, after one person gets the knockout, you have to deal with another turn of Brook, so as long as both people have relatively good damage and relatively good removal of defensive effects, that's going to be the best way forward for knocking out Brook. So looking at the final team now is going to be our INT squad, where for this mission you have to build a team that is fully INT whilst also using driven or slasher characters. This one was actually pretty difficult. I mean, one good thing about this is that, you know, INT Slasher, you get access to Roger and Newgate, so that's an immediate positive. You're generating matching slots and an attack and an all boost every single turn. For this one, I opted to do something a little bit different and use S-Hawk Captain. For those who don't know what he does, as a captain, he does resist paralysis and a special bind on himself, whilst also having a special that can remove paralysis and special bind. So that was the main reason why I opted to use him, but realistically, looking back at it, I probably would recommend using INT Yamato as the captain here. You know, very powerful INT captain, got access to level limit break recently, and Yamato's got the captain ability to resist bind. One thing I did a little bit overlook with this squad is that I don't have any bind removal, so, you know, looking back at it, would definitely replace that. But as for the rest of the squad, I was pretty happy with the rest of the units that we opted to use. Using Legend Queen, who removes defense and threshold by a bunch of turns and also generates tandem slots, grants a color affinity boost. The INT Jack, also very good, removing Rainbow Shield, removing attack down, and then we also have got INT Brook from Film Red, who also removes attack down and a bunch of defensive effects. So I felt pretty comfortable with this squad. You know, it felt like it got rid of most things, but of course, if you end up getting binded, that can be a problem, and I did opt to use Katakuri as INT Katakuri as my co-op captain. Once again, another debuff captain that can remove enemy beneficial effects, and then of course, I can use that co-op special to grant additional damage on your burst turn. But this is just the team that I come up with. There are actually like a bunch of other units that you could potentially use in this case. You could potentially use something like Alba as your main captain for this. You know, he resists a bunch of debuffs on himself, which is kind of nice, but of course the issue is that you can't run like double Alba because of the co-op captain stuff, so you can't like completely resist despair, bind, etc. on your captains. You could use Versus Kaido as well, which grants like huge damage bonuses, and he does resist special bind and special reverse on himself. You know, there's a couple of different units you could be using in this circumstance. I did see that some people were using a character like INT Rare Recruit Iron, which is an old school Rare Recruit, but very, very good Rare Recruit, removing a bunch of different debuffs, and I think she has level limit break as well, which can make her, you know, just a little bit better. So that's basically it. That's all of these key missions. I've already uploaded a video going through PKA Ace 150 and Co-op Quest events, so make sure to go ahead and check that one out as well. But that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one, and if you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content that I post on my channel, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.
足引っ張んなよ。うるせえな。